Hello and welcome to the O Podcast, also known as the Only Women Entrepreneurs Podcast. I am Rosemary Cescolini, your host, a former high school English teacher who redefined herself as a successful entrepreneur in the realm of manufacturing. For over 30 years, I worked at Royal Door Limited, designing and crafting handmade custom wood doors for thousands of people coast to coast, where our products are household names. In fact, our products can be found on HGTV renovation shows, on Netflix series, and home and construction renovation magazines. Now, I run O, where we explore remarkable journeys of women who fearlessly embraced alternative careers in construction, manufacturing, and entrepreneurship. Join me as we uncover their inspiring stories and glean invaluable wisdom from these trailblazers who have charted their course, breaking barriers and ushering in a new era for women in the world. Our guest today, Leah Peters, is a force to be reckoned with in the construction world. From picking up nails in her father's workshop to becoming a Red Seal certified carpenter and site superintendent at Boxdale Construction, Leah's journey is an inspiring testament to determination, courage, and the pursuit of one's true passions. Her story resonates deeply with O's mission of equipping and empowering aspiring women with the tools they need to succeed. Join us as we explore navigating a thriving career in construction with Leah Peters. Welcome to the O Podcast, Leah. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to your current role as site superintendent?
Thanks for having me here today. So for me, it really started just with helping out my dad. He was a home handyman and he was a teacher as well. So
Wonderful.
houses in the summers, and we got our first house when I was, I want to say 4 or 5, that needed full gut and renovation. And I was there to help him. Like you said, I was picking up nails. So every nail I picked up and banged out, I would get a penny. And it taught me
incentive.
Yeah. And really just taught me to reuse and to be green as well when you recycle, which is something that I'm very interested in now. And doing that, I always enjoyed it. Got my first house at 16, which he helped me renovate. And then when he left the province, and he actually left the country to pursue his own dreams, I decided that I didn't know what I was doing in my life. So I had to do something. And I figured, why not learn how to renovate my house while I was figuring out what I wanted to go to university for? Right. So I decided to get a job in construction. So at the beginning, it was hard to find a job. That was probably one of the hardest barriers to overcome at the beginning, was just getting someone to accept a female. This was about 13-ish years ago.
Right.
And eventually I did get a job through a friend and started out in residential. And I did that for 6 years, which really taught me how to do a lot of different things in houses, right from how the plumbing works to the HVAC to the painting to the millwork. So I got a good variety of experience doing that when I went over to commercial, I found that really helped me get into the supervision role where I could kind of understand to a point what everybody was doing.
It's incredible how your hands-on experiences shaped your path. So can you further elaborate on the crucial moments that convinced you to pursue a career in carpentry and construction?
Oh, I don't think at any point in my career did I think I was pursuing a job in construction. I think it was just, my dad's gone. I got to do something. I was serving and had some different office jobs that I knew I couldn't sit at a desk. So I decided that I'd just get someone to formally train me, and then I'd go back to university, which is what my mother really, really wanted me to go back to university. And, I kept doing the carpentry and I did the levels, and I decided, what, I should get my ticket at least. Then I could always have that to fall back on. And once I got my ticket, I had moved up to foreman. And then after that supervision, that I kind of got stuck in it. And I loved every day. It kept me going. And before that, I found a job would last about a year, maybe 2 at most, and I'd get bored.
That's interesting that you say that, because, when you're not sure what you want to do, like I became a teacher for the main reason was my parents, they were immigrants, and they said, you know what, you got to go to university because that's the only way you're going to get a really good job, because they didn't speak English. They only had a grade 5 education. So they were stuck in lower paying jobs, blue collar, right? Mm-hmm. And slowly, though, they did come up the social ladder because they acquired skills. And they said, it was really hard for them because simply, nobody would actually put them in leadership role because of the language barrier. So, and they said, and the other thing is construction, where my dad worked. That's why I love it so much. It had a lot of layoffs, and he says there's no job security, especially when things are slow and the economy is not doing too well. So, go get a government job or something like that. So, and they go, teacher would be a good profession because if you're planning to get married and have a family, then you'd be home with the kids. So, as a good kid I just blindly went into it. But I enjoyed my childhood because my dad, he did make it to Site Super as well. And the Highway 400 series in Toronto, my dad worked on, and he did the bridges, he worked on the subways. So when those were being built, we would go on the weekends, and we would creep through and check out all the machines and the pipes, and as my eyes were just wide-eyed and say, Dad, what's this for? What's that for? And then he goes, oh, let me show you. And then we'd sit on a machine, and it could have been an excavator or a backhoe or something like that. So, but then when I said I wanted to do something in construction, my parents said, well, I don't think so, because there weren't a lot of women. I don't recall any women when I was growing up on a construction site. So I find it very unique that you decided to go in there and not maybe pursue like an office job or something like that. That's very, very interesting. That's why I was trying to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, no, my parents definitely were not happy at the beginning.
Right.
My mom said you should be a doctor or a lawyer. So I very easily could have done it. I didn't want to spend, I kept watching everybody spend all this money
Mhm.
on school. And looking at the trades now, it's such a great opportunity. It's unfortunate that the media really kind of bashes it. You're watching TV and the guy goes, oh, I don't know what to do in life. I think I'll just go into construction because I'm not good at anything else. And I'm kind of like, well, that doesn't really apply anymore. You can go into construction, and within 4 years, you're going to be making, you can make over six figures after just 4 years of school, and you get paid to go to school. There's no school debt, there's no
Right.
student loans. So you look at everybody now just getting into huge student loan debt to go to university, and you come out to make a job where you're making 40, 50K a year. That doesn't make any sense. But you have to be willing to get your hands dirty. So we kind of joke around and we call it clean hand or dirty hands, clean money.
Right.
Is right now.
And actually, you brought up a really important point. Yeah, you can make really good money really quickly, but the other thing is the tons of opportunities there are now. Like people like my father, he's no longer with us, but his generation are retired, and there's such a big gap in the trades that anyone that's willing to learn, there's going to be a place for you. It doesn't even matter what position or situation you are in life. Then you said you can get your apprenticeship paid for. So you got free learning experience, and boom, you got a guaranteed job, which is phenomenal, right?
Oh, 100%. I always tell apprentices, show up and show up on time, and you're ahead of the game.
Yeah. So those are some of the pros that we discussed about working in carpentry and construction. What are some of the cons that you see?
I think there's cons in any job. And with construction, I struggled a lot with PPE, so personal protective equipment
Right.
at the beginning, finding a good pair of steel toes, getting my coveralls to fit. I went to go buy a new pair of Carhartt pants the other day at Mark's, and of course, they didn't have my size, so I have to go get them tailored. So you get very used to it, but there's something called the imposter syndrome,
Right.
where when nothing fits, where nothing is for you, you feel like you shouldn't be there. So a lot of the times down the road, I felt like I wasn't meant to be here. Nobody thinks I should be here, and nobody wants me to. And I think at the end of the day, everybody telling me I shouldn't be doing it just kept me going more. And I just was really stubborn and wanted to keep going because somebody said I couldn't do it. So then I was like, oh, now I want to do it kind of thing. But struggling with the PPE was something that I find is not as bad anymore, but there's still a gap. There's still a gap having the steel toes aren't made like they make them for men's, and my feet are too small. to fit into men's aside from Blundstones, but those don't work well with my feet.
Hmm.
So I've gone through some struggles on that. Definitely finding the first job. You know what? That is the hardest. Getting a company willing to take somebody on who's green, who doesn't know anything, and take you on as a liability. When I first interviewed, I was laughed out of interviews and
Right.
straight out told we don't want the harassment case. So
Wow.
it's a sad fact of it, but some females do go into it and do harassment cases, sometimes for the right reasons, sometimes for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
It makes the businesses not want the females there because they cause problems.
Right.
But realistically, there's a problem on site or in general in construction with just the community and the way people are. It needs females. It really does, because the way men treat each other in itself sometimes aren't always great. And you throw a woman in and you have less horseplay. You have more respect happening on the job site. The job's a little cleaner sometimes. So it's all those little things that I think women are going to bring a great touch to construction and are going to change it and evolve it into something where it becomes a job that's looked up upon and not looked down upon by society anymore.
Right. And you touched on a lot of important points. First of all, including women, that is huge because we see things differently from men. And we come from another perspective, and we have a different way of creativity vibes that could be beneficial. And it's one thing that I think we have to work on is team effort, because we're here to do a job, whether it's to build a subdivision or put in a road or build a subway. This is my team. I don't care who you are. All I know is you guys are the best out there, and we're going to get the job done on time and on budget. That's what we all hope for, right? And yeah, that's an important message that we need to get out, and that's why we're here today. Just letting everyone know that it's really, really important for society as a whole to progress in the right way. And you mentioned about being environmentally friendly. It takes a group effort. If you just have 50% of the population doing it and the other 50 not, then we're not going to get to where we need to be. That's so important.
Yeah, no, government really has to put more mandates on certain things for that, really, to make it a group effort for sure. But it's definitely changing in construction, though. I hear females coming into it now and they're saying
Right.
they have no problems. Everybody's been treating them great. And that's not always the case, but it seems as though it has gotten easier to get in. There's still always that struggle at the first job, but I'm finding contractors want females now. They've realized the value, and the females that come into construction really want to be there. So they put that extra effort in to be there, and they're not there because their dad did it or because, they didn't get into university or something. They're there because they actually want to be there and enjoy doing what they do. And that impact just gives you a worker that's usually reliable and willing to learn and all that kind of stuff. That it's right now, there's a huge workplace shortage for everybody, that it's going to fill the working gap in construction. It's just getting that extra step and figuring out, what does need to be looked at and changed. So right now I'm actually working in Manitoba on a tradeswoman advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
Group of tradeswomen are going to meet and advise what things we need, and have an advocate who's going to be hired on and sponsored, basically, that their role is to help females getting into construction and help facilitate what needs to be done to make it easier for us.
That's fantastic. Now, does it have anything to do with the Canadian Association of Women in Construction, or is it totally
No,
independent?
this one I'm just kind of creating up on the fly. So there's the Office to Advance Women Apprenticeship, which I believe started
Right.
in Nova Scotia. New Brunswick ran great out of there. So Karen Walsh started it up. It was an absolute success. They got up to 13%, I want to believe. It's about roughly 3 to 4% usually
Mm-hmm.
for trades. And their model worked so well there, it got sent with the trades unions across Canada to a bunch of different places. It unfortunately didn't work in Manitoba. Manitoba is a little bit different than the other provinces too, how
Okay.
things work and how things are done. So this one's kind of more the tradeswomen are going to run it. So it's not going to be union, it's not going to be non-union, it's not going to be affiliated necessarily to one entity, but
Mm-hmm.
for all entities, because there's not enough females to say just have a group of only this kind of trade, or
Right.
only have a group of this kind of company or anything like that. There's just not enough of us. You have the bigger companies might have one or two each. I
Right.
know Boxstall, who I work for, it's a Manitoba company. They've really pushed having more females, and right now have 6 craft workers on the tools, which is quite a bit for a company in Manitoba, but
Hmm.
it's very rare to see. And that's just the difference of the family that runs the business.
Well, that's very encouraging. That's one step in the right direction. The other thing I think that's really lacking is perhaps we need a little bit of change in the educational system. So, from your perspective, in Manitoba, are the trades being introduced at high school level, or they've been kind of removed like they have been here in Ontario?
So that being said, I did woodworking in
Hmm.
grade 9 in one school because I didn't want to take a home mech class.
Okay.
Um, so I got in, but never did I think, oh, I could do this. It was just a class to fill the void. It wasn't something that I said, oh, I could do this in my life. I don't think right now counselors are being pushed into sending people into the trades unless it's a last ditch effort, which is unfortunate. And I
Right.
definitely know that females are not being given the option. So we've talked to some counselors and we're in contacts with the schooling and stuff like that. So that's why we need a tradeswoman advocate to go in and talk to them, as well as have us tradeswomen in the province go and speak to the counselors, talk to them about, hey, this is what we make, this is what we do, this is how schooling works. Because people don't realize, and I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is how much money you can make in the trades and how cheap it is to get there. And 4 years is not very long.
No,
And you're
that's right.
working throughout it. So it's not like you're not making money and you're going to school and doing a side job. So it's something that really needs to get more out there. And we're looking at different options on how to get that message across to people more, and maybe do a bulletin board, or not a bulletin board. What's those big things on the highways?
Those advertising placards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So we've kind
Yeah.
of looked at different things like that. I was a part of Manitoba Women in Construction
Hmm.
for a couple of years. So I did the trades outreach, and I was their first person on the board who was a tradesperson.
All right.
So it was all kind of the office staff side. And they've been doing a lot of things in Manitoba too to help forward trades and women. And even hearing from them, the difference of 10 years ago to now is huge. But now it's just kind of figuring out how we retain, because a lot of people are focused on recruiting. So
Right.
everybody wants to recruit, recruit, recruit. And I said, well,
Hmm.
have you got a retention strategy before you
Hmm.
recruit? Because if you don't have a retention strategy, you're just going to keep cycling people in and out.
Right.
Ultimately, it's just going to make things worse in the long run.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard from other guests that that's one big issue they're having is retention, and that's a problem that it's nationwide that they got to work on as well. But I think one of the things that we need to focus on is changing the mentality of parents. And I'll give you an example. I still have friends that are in the teaching field, and then they're close to retirement too, and they're utterly frustrated because you have a parent teacher interview and you're trying to explain to the parents that so and so, your daughter or son, unfortunately doesn't have the grades to go to university. And the parents are convinced that their child is going to be a doctor or going to be a scientist or something that is beyond their capability. So then they flip it on the teacher and they say, well, you're not doing a good job teaching. I think the parents' mindset and mentality have to change as well. And I think we need to target them that, as you said earlier, you can have an incredible, incredible life as a skilled tradesperson. It doesn't matter, it could be plumbing, it could be carpentry or whatever. And you make fantastic sums of money. Like, okay, an apprentice in carpentry. How much are they making per hour at the moment? Any
I,
idea?
I think they start around 20
Right.
and you end
And
about 40.
okay, and what's minimum wage in Manitoba?
Ooh, I believe it's going up to $15 an hour right
Okay.
away.
So let's assume it's $15 and you got $20. You're already making $5 more. There's extreme shortage in labor. And when there's that type of shortage and they're building a lot of homes and buildings, there's endless amount of work. You can probably do overtime.
Oh yeah. That's where you get the six figures. And
that's where you get to six figures. So these are facts that are not being presented to students, to guidance counselors, and to parents. And yeah, that's why we're here today, to have that shortage filled. Because one thing that people don't realize in general is without skilled people, we wouldn't have all the amenities that we love and enjoy every day. We wouldn't have our cell phone. We wouldn't have our homes. We wouldn't have electricity and plumbing and on and on and on, right? And then if the shortage continues, these things break down. Like, I have to get a new roof. If there's no roofers, well, that water's going to come in, that snow's going to get through, and it's going to damage my house. So I think we're at a critical point where these shortages, if they persist for another 10 years, we're, as a society, we're going to regress. What are your thoughts on that?
There's definitely a shortage. And they've been talking about this for a while. A big problem is you have a lot of the people that with experience that they need to hand down that experience is they're retiring out.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're going to run into all kinds of problems over the next even 10 years of a lot of the skilled workers aren't skilled anymore. So you now have a new generation coming in, and definitely the parents are a big issue. And it's a societal norm and stigmatism that's put around construction. And that's really what needs to be redefined, is when you watch a movie, when you watch television, that they don't bash construction, because I see it all the time. And I never used to notice it. But after getting into construction, you start looking at it going, oh, that's really rude. That doesn't make any sense. And I mean, there's the other benefit that I miss being on the tools some days, because I got paid to work out for 8 hours a day. I never had to worry about physical fitness or going to a gym. I was paid to do it. So not only am I getting paid a good wage, I am now being paid to physically work out, that I don't have to go waste another hour or two at the end of the day to go work out.
That's right.
It was a great plan. And I ended up getting into finished carpentry at the beginning, because then I stayed inside. But I've done a bit of time outside in the winter in commercial, and I found, it wasn't that bad as long as you're moving and you dressed for it.
Right.
So it wasn't as bad as I always thought. Supervising in the winter outside, not a big fan of standing there taking pictures.
Yeah, you do get cold quite quickly, right? As opposed to moving and keeping warm, right?
Yeah, but there's always ways. They make hot packs that you put in your mitts. So there's always different ways, and you learn those tips and tricks as you go, and people will tell you about them. I know eventually I want to get a brochure put together for women starting out with little tips and tricks. Like, I had no idea what to do with my hard hat, my hair, my shoes. Apparently, when you work 16-hour shifts, you're supposed to bring an extra pair of socks. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So all these little things I'm hoping to eventually collect together and kind of get out there for people starting in to make it a little bit easier on them. But there is things happening, and people do see that females can fill that gap. It's now getting it in their heads that they can do it. The amount of women that I've had come up to me who are older and said, well, I'm at the age, I don't know if I can really start. And I said, why not? I know plumbers that have started at 55. There is no limitation in the trades for your age. Right. There really isn't. Now, would I start bricklaying at the age of 55? I don't know. That's heavier lifting a lot of times, right? So there's a different trade for every person. So if you don't want to do something too physical, you can get into something like painting, where there is a bit of physicalness to it, but you're not going to be lifting up heavy sheets of wood or anything like that all day. Right. So I think there really is in the trades a little compartment for everybody, right. And it has a wide variety. And people are starting to realize that when you have ADHD or certain things, that the trades actually is a really good fit, because it can accommodate for different things so much better. And people have been finding a desk job maybe doesn't work for them, but working in the field, it's great. So right now, a big thing is, if you can see it, you can be it. Right now, you can't see too many females doing it. It's starting to happen slowly, but I've had people say, oh, you're in construction, you're the girl that holds the sign. No,
yes.
No, I don't hold the sign. But it's true. When you drive
Yeah.
around the city, a lot of times you see the woman holding the sign.
Right.
However, I know this summer I've kept my eye out and I think I've seen about 2 women on the tools on road work. So that was nice to see that they weren't just
Yeah.
holding the signs now. So there is change and momentum happening, but now it's getting through to the parents, the guidance counselors, but also getting through to women who want a second or third career. There's a missed opportunity there
Mm-hmm.
that I look at most of the women I know that are successful in their trades. It's a second or third career option. This wasn't our first choice.
Right.
We kind of fell into it and stuck it out once we realized how great it was. You're coming out of high school at 18 might be a bit harder than if you're in your 30s or 40s and you already know how to deal with maybe the other young guys that you're going to have to deal with on site and
Right.
know what you want more in life. But you really have to look at both of them and really make sure you're attracting both ages and genres and everything like that. So I know right now with the gap of workers, we have immigration right now that's going to be filling a lot of things, which is great to see.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is the language barrier, like you talked about,
Yes.
that we're still trying to sort out in construction. How do we make sure people are safe if they don't understand what's speaking?
Yeah.
And I went to London, England last year with a delegation of 40 tradeswomen across North America. And there they have a rule that if you have someone who doesn't speak a language, you have to have a translator for every, I think, 3 or 5 people it was.
Right.
And that translator had to be with them at all times.
Mm-hmm.
If something's happening and you have to yell heads up or this or
Yeah.
anything, you need to be able to translate and get that. Right now, people are looking into apps and different options, putting signage in different languages, but it is something that Canada is going to have to kind of get a little bit ahead of the game. I know Ontario usually does things first. They just recently passed the law about the women's bathrooms being
Yes.
mandatory.
Yes.
I was ecstatic to see. It's a big thing for me.
I think so.
You know what? I used to hate it. I used to never want my own toilet. And after experiencing too many things, I will always have my own toilet for
Yeah.
females.
Yeah.
It's very important. And it's something that it's still a huge struggle with for tradeswomen.
Mm-hmm.
So box stall construction has made it mandatory. Every single job has a female and a men's porta potty, no matter what, because we sometimes forget there's the delivery drivers or the project manager or a tester or an engineer coming on site, that it's not just the females on the tools, but there's always going to be females in construction going forward because there's more and more females on the engineering side than there are on the tools. So we need to make the construction site available for them as well.
Well, that's right. That's so true. So I'm thinking one thing maybe that we could introduce is just changing the way trades are looked at in terms of, like, you go to university, you get a degree. But if you go to college, okay, you might get a certificate or you might get a diploma. So rather than, doing it that way, just treat it all the same. So you have a doctor degree. Okay. I have a degree in carpentry. If you're a master artisan, you can have a master's in carpentry because, the more experience you acquire, then the better the title you are, right? I think that would be more beneficial because my father-in-law, he was a master artisan from Italy. And he didn't have any certificates. He didn't have any diplomas or anything like that. No paperwork. But, if you would put him against anybody that was highly skilled to maybe the maximum degree in this country against him, there wouldn't be a competition because he had so much experience. And that's one thing I think the society, the school boards, and even the government is just not understanding the level of skill. It's just like almost parallel to a brain surgeon. Like, you're not going to have a knee doctor work on your brain, and you're not going to have a carpenter that, okay, I helped my dad put some nails and I helped him build a shed. Okay, compared to someone that has had years and years of experience. So I think there's that disconnect between society and the real skilled individuals like you and people like you have to be given respect. And I just feel it's not there yet. And I'm hoping, with this podcast, with guests like yourself, they come in and they share their stories that, yes, word is going to get out. And yeah, we need these people. Like we need our right arm or our left arm to function. Without them, we're not going anywhere.
Oh, it's very important. There's, I don't know if you've talked to Jamie McMillan. She's an iron worker out of Ontario. She does public speaking now.
I tried to get in contact with her, but unfortunately, I haven't had any luck. I'd love to have her on the show.
Yeah, I know she's quite busy, but she's somebody who's actually going to be making a huge difference in Canada for women. I've heard her speak before,
Yep.
met her at trade shows and stuff like that. And
Right.
her thing was, some of the problems is you didn't have the women in construction that looked very feminine all the time, to have that representation that you can still be a very feminine woman and be in construction. That I know I'd go out and I'm dressed up, and if I tell somebody what I would do, people wouldn't believe me all the time.
Right.
Or I'm a bit small for a carpenter. Most carpenters are taller. But everybody just wouldn't believe me right away. But there's ways of doing it. I couldn't lift as much as the other guy. However, you're only supposed to lift 50 pounds. That's not very much.
No.
And when I had to lift more than that, I got wheels. I carried a dolly from site to site. I found other ways around things, or I got smarter and I got people to help me. And doing that allows for less injuries.
Exactly. You just learned to problem solve, right?
Yeah. You have to work smarter, not harder.
So I wanted to touch on the importance of mentorship and any support that you got through your journey. So how do you think reaching out to other women earlier on, when they're still young and impressionable, might accelerate their progress into coming into alternative careers such as construction?
I do think it's very important. I hope people focus on the retention strategy before they focus too much on the recruitment. I've done a few trades that I've ran out of Manitoba. I did one with 90 girls from grades 5 and 6. And I had surveys done at the end of it. Right. And there was about 8 different booths they could try: carpentry, bricklaying, electrical, a bunch of different trade booths. Some were VR, virtual reality, and some were hands-on. And I'd say about 99% of the female surveys from those kids said, did you consider an option in the trades before this? No.
Right.
Did you consider, can you see yourself doing this as a career option? And 99% of them said yes. So just coming into that trades where we have mainly females at the booths representing all the trades, it's absolutely an unbelievable day. And having them leave it going, oh, I could see myself doing that. Now I just need their parents to get on board. So I think it is very important to get them at a young age. By high school, people know what they want to do.
Right.
So getting at them at a young age is very, very important. And there's more female mentors out there now for them. That my hope is that there's a female on every single job, that any job a female goes to, she's not the only one. Because the minute that you have 2 females on a job, it changes the whole dynamic.
Right.
And the whole stigma of it. It just makes it completely different. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But in general, you're no longer the only one. I went from residential, me working with me and an old guy in a house, to going to my first commercial site with over 2,000 people, and I couldn't see a female. So it was a huge shock factor for me. And there was females here and there that I saw from some trades, and I always get so excited to see them. But there are mentorship programs that are starting up. And I know most of the trades females that I do know that have been at it for a while always offer to lend a hand or lend an ear, whatever is needed.
That's great. So considering your journey, like what kind of a legacy do you hope to leave behind for the next generation of women entering non-traditional careers?
I want to leave behind a better environment for them, but not only for them, but for the men. I think that the changes that can happen and be done with women in construction are going to make a huge impact on both the men and the women. Construction, what was the numbers? 44% or 30% of homicides or suicides, are construction workers. The
Oh,
number
that's
was
really high.
astronomical.
Wow.
I believe it was 30%, and then 40% of substance abuse deaths were related in construction, but the numbers were unbelievably high. And
Didn't know
being
that. That is awful.
so it's something that I do think there is something needed. And I hope that the environment just gets better. And it is already 100%. It is getting better. And it takes people who are leaders stepping up and taking the right action and being that one person. The iron workers of the United States had to be that one person, be that one man.
Mm-hmm.
And it was stand up against violence. And this was over the woman that got killed in California in 2015 against basically got bludgeoned over the head and killed, basically,
Goodness.
because there was an issue with her. So I look at Canada and I do think we are further ahead than some places. After going to Britain, Britain's very far behind. They have
Mm-hmm.
way further ahead in the safety areas. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to women in construction, they're not even hitting 1%.
Wow, that's
So there's
terrifying.
huge issues all over the world with getting women into construction, getting it accepted, getting people to realize that we can be there, we should be there, because every man usually looks at the woman and goes, what is she doing here? And you have to prove yourself every job over and over again. So
Hands down.
I really hope that it makes it easier for women coming in, which I am seeing, and that their journey doesn't have to be as hard as mine was.
Wow, that is, I just speechless to that. I understand where you're coming from. Like when I started 30 years ago in a manufacturing plant, I didn't work in the office. I didn't want to work in the office because it was all men. Clients were all male as well. And you kind of get that blowback like, what is she doing here? What does she know? Right. So I said, I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to work in the back. So my father in law, like I said, master artisan, had one-to-one lessons. And then when I started learning and being able to do other tasks, yeah, the guy started to pay note and say, okay, well, she's not stupid. She can figure this out. So when I became very, skilled at making these doors, then I started creating my own from scratch and introducing new designs, setting new trends. Then they're kind of like taken aback. And that's when I started getting respect because I proved to them that, yeah, I am a woman. I'm different from you. Absolutely. But you know what? I got a brain, I got eyes, and I got a willingness to learn. So that's when they started to kind of like lay back and I became part of the team. And then at that point, that's when I was able to feel confident to go into sales because every client, 100%, they were male. But as the years progressed, we started getting more women engineers, women architects, project managers, which I'm going to be having on the show to discuss their experiences. So I'm seeing that change, and I'm hoping that this change will come into your industry as well. And I'm happy in a way that, compared to other countries, Canada is further ahead, but we need to progress it even further ahead. I'd like to be a leader in that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. And I know the government's tried a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
My advice would be for the government to speak to the tradeswomen first a bit more.
Right.
That's why I'm looking at the Tradeswomen Advisory Group. I've seen them put money into grants and to do things that actually backfired on us,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And one thing that's really important to note is the mentors. I never would have made it without mentors. I never met another female in the trades really until 2018 or so.
Right.
So about 5 years ago. It took me a long time, and it took me going to a conference in Vegas to meet another local from Manitoba, which is ridiculous when I say
Heck
that.
is.
But I look at the foremen that took me under their wing, superintendents that took me under their wing,
Mm-hmm.
the guy I worked with in residential, all of them as a whole, they saw potential in me and they really, really urged me on and stood and had my back when needed and everything like that. And because of them, they were the ones telling me the things that I needed to know. And I still remember a foreman telling me, know your stuff, know your abbreviations, know your wordings, know your stuff, and nobody can question you. And that was something that always kind of stuck with me that I studied so hard on every single project I did to know what I was talking about, to understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a few Google searches I had to do here and there, or phone calls to somebody to ask
Right.
what something was. But I found, in construction, you always keep learning. It's a never ending learning cycle, that there is no project that's the same. There's no day that's the same. And I think that's part of what I love too, is just the ever changing and evolving and learning of something new.
Well, you definitely don't get bored in carpentry or manufacturing because like you just said, every day presented a new challenge, which I enjoyed. And you know what? It's better than an office job where you sit in front of a computer and you're inputting information or answering the phone, right? It's just you, piece of wood, some machinery, and away you go, right? It's
Oh,
great.
what I found when I was on the tools, it was the lowest stress job. Somebody gave me drawings, somebody told me what to do. I just went and did stuff. You build, you do things. It was meditative, relaxing. It was such an amazing career. Supervising, however, I love it. I don't think I could just turn around and go back. Definitely not the same kind of levels of
Mhm.
stress. Definitely a little bit more stressful, but more of a challenge that I enjoy.
Yeah, but you have a lot of responsibilities, right? And especially when you have to worry about the safety of others and make sure that jobs are completed on time and on budget. That's very important. So yeah, I could understand how it's more stressful. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure. Safety is a big thing. And if anybody gives me backlash on it, I explain to them, well, I'm the one that goes to jail. And that usually puts them quite quiet. And they
Yeah.
realize that's why we stress about safety in construction,
Right.
is because if I don't do my proper due diligence and make sure everybody's safe, and somebody goes and dies by accident because they were doing something wrong, that goes back on my own liability. They changed the laws in about 2016 that now you can personally be fined and personally go to jail, not just the company, which is very important because you need to be held responsible for things, right?
Wow, that's a very heavy responsibility to do that. So it's obvious your passion for construction is evident. So how do you strike a balance between your demanding career and other personal passions you might have?
That is definitely something that is hard to figure out at the beginning.
Mm,
And I struggled with it at the beginning, learning to turn my brain off because it goes a million miles a minute and
yeah,
I think about work all the time. But I learned pretty fast after a few years of supervising that if you don't learn to turn it off and self-care and do certain things, you burn out.
right,
You burn out from the stress. It becomes too much. That I take my personal time very serious now. My weekends, I still will answer my phone and emails and all that kind of stuff, but I do learn to turn off my brain and focus on certain things and do more self-care for myself than I even used to do back on the tools, and
right.
got into house plants. So if I'm having a stressful day, I might go home and just play with my house plants for a few hours, and that would calm me down, kind of thing. I remember everybody's reaction is go and have a drink. And I'm like, I don't think that's what you should do.
No,
Because a lot of people tend to go to booze, unfortunately, which just makes the matters worse. And then I'm not going to work very well the next day.
that's true. I don't think anybody can work the next day if they're out drinking, and especially your mornings probably start early as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
networking often plays a significant role in a career growth. Could you share maybe a networking experience that has positively impacted your journey?
oh, networking is very important. And I think being a part of a women's group
Mm,
earlier on. So there's young construction leaders in Manitoba. There's also Manitoba Women in Construction. So I went to all their events, which is through Winnipeg Construction Association.
right.
So I would go to the events and I was a part of things and I got to know people. And I still remember this was last summer. I went to some random event and I met some concrete guys. Never done much concrete, didn't know them, chatted with them and had a great time. And the next
Right.
day they asked me, oh, do you want to go to a golf tournament? Okay, sure. So I was unemployed at the time, had no care in the world, and I randomly just went to a golf tournament. And I remember, I think I got 2 job offers while I was at the golf tournament,
That's great.
just hearing I was an unemployed carpenter. It was so things like that I found are very important, as well as going to like the women's conferences and stuff like that. When I did go
Hmm.
job hunting, that's how I actually went about it, is I looked at who I met at conferences and people that I've ran into that are really trying to get involved in these things. And that helped make decisions for me at the time.
Right. So construction, like many industries, is evolving with technology. So, how do you see technological advancements impacting the roles and opportunities for women in your field?
Oh, technology is an interesting when it comes to construction because
Hmm.
technology has changed so much of the world, but it has touched very little on construction, to be honest. There's been a lot of advancements and things, but you're going to see them more overseas. I find you're going to see a lot more advancement in technology in about 10 to 20 years from now. There's
Hmm.
a lot of people there still that don't want to be involved in it.
Right.
However, it is going to change things to make us more productive, give better quality, give better safety. There's going to be so many different things you can do. I've used sensors in rooms to tell me what the humidity is and the temperatures are. You can use wind sensors basically that tell you exactly what the wind is for safely using a crane. So there's all kinds of different technologies. They even have a robot dog that walks around the job and takes pictures and stuff like that in the States.
Wow.
So there's things happening. And I know there's talk about robots coming in and doing our jobs. And while there will be certain times that you will eventually have robotic stuff happening, you're always going to need people. That
Hmm.
will never change in construction. And then you're also going to need people to run the robots. And we have drones that is getting very popular. So the technology is starting to come in construction, but it's a very wary aspect. A lot of people don't want to use an app. They want a phone call or a piece
Hmm.
of paper. So you're kind of hinging on a fact that it might take a good decade to kind of get people more ongoing in it, but there's some great technologies out there. There's cameras, the 360 cameras are absolutely amazing to take pictures of your job site and have a full 360 round view of everything
Right.
that you miss anything. You're getting a picture of that tiny little corner that you need to see 6 months later.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's good. That's encouraging, right? It makes
Mm.
work safer and you can work smarter, and it could also save a lot of time as well.
And women will definitely, I think, help bridge some of that gap. Depending on you're going to be getting the younger women in who are going to be more advanced into wanting to use the technology, as well as having the patience to set something up or
Right.
organize something or even look into it or suggest it. Sometimes that's just the gap that's there.
Wonderful. So, as a site superintendent, leadership is integral. How do you approach leadership, inspire your team members, aligning with the values of collaboration, innovation, and collective growth? And these are all central to O's mission.
I think one of the biggest things I do, and I'll always do, and I learned this from my parents, and it's treat the janitor the same as the CEO. At the end of the day, I will treat the ownership group the exact same as I will that trade worker on site. I think everyone needs the exact same treatment and respect, and every single worker is so important on the job. I I recently, I had a job. There were some hard things to get through and figuring some stuff out, and to build up momentum, I started doing weekly inspirational quotes on a bulletin board at the front of
Mm,
the front of the door, and it was just random things I found on LinkedIn or this or that.
right.
I never thought anybody was reading it. Nobody really said anything. Then one guy says to me one day, "When's your next quote going up?"
Oh,
And I realized, and another guy told me at the end, he said, "I absolutely love this."
nice.
And it was kind of a way to set the tone. When you have a construction site, the superintendent fully sets the tone. If the super is in a bad mood, the site's in a bad mood. It trickles down, and it's unfortunate that it has to be that way, but the control that a superintendent has is so much. I know we had a really hot spell and the AC wasn't working, so
Wow.
I went out and got a freezer with freezies, and there was free freezies for everybody. Didn't cost very much money, but it made a huge difference
But
in people's attitude of being at work. And it's bad conditions. We're not that happy. But you know what? Those little tiny things
mhm.
really make a world of difference and give you a job that has a good positive vibe to it. That when you walk onto the job, you can feel everybody's joking and laughing and happy. Very important in construction because construction's stressful. You're always not on time. You're not on budget
Right.
and something's missed, something didn't get shipped. There's always a problem. It's every day, new problems. But keeping the attitude light and everybody happy, I think, is a big thing because it makes the whole job just go better. And the trades all leave happy, and the GC leaves happy, and the client ultimately is happy as well
Mhm.
because they get a better product with that because people communicate better then.
Well, they sure do. Yeah, that's good. Well, you are a problem solver, and that's, like you said, a little thing could make such a big difference in their lives because, they pay attention to tiny, tiny adjustments to schedule. One thing we do is we acknowledge birthdays. So when it's someone's birthday, they usually eat in groups, right? Different shift work. So lunch is provided for their group, and they enjoy the day, right? And they reminisce about their birthdays and what they like about them, what they don't like about it, and it established like a camaraderie amongst people, and you become a real team, and that's really really important to have if you're going to be able to build things and make sure that they're built well.
Oh, and telling people they've done something well. I went years and years and years in construction. No news is good news. Ask somebody what I can be doing better. Just keep doing what you're doing. So I find when I take the time and I tell a trade worker what a good job they've done or
Right.
compliment something they've done, you can't do it too much or it loses its value.
Yes.
But they just beam. They absolutely just beam from it. And it's a simple thing. And I remember I was taking tennis lessons a few years ago, and the guy kept telling me good shot on like every other good shot. I'm like, okay, like I got it the first time, but like 5 other shots were bad. You're going to compliment the one that, but it kind of made me think about it more and more
Yeah.
about how we don't take the time and thank people enough or tell them good job. And when you do, it's it's almost better than giving them a birthday cake or food sometimes
Yes.
because it makes them feel good inside. And I do use food a lot. Food is my favorite thing to use because nobody can be mad at you when they hand you a donut. If I give you a donut, you're going to be my friend probably.
Oh yes, for sure. That warms everybody's heart. Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, the comments for sure. Telling someone, like you said, periodically that they did a really good job, or you know what, I'm really impressed that you were able to solve that problem on your own.
Mhm.
And definite confidence builder. I agree with that. That's good tips for anybody that's in that managerial or superintendent position.
Yeah.
Words to live by. So, the industry trends often shape your career prospects. So, what emerging trends in construction do you believe young women should keep an eye on as they plan their career paths?
The technology side is something
Mm-hmm.
definitely to think about.
Okay.
Getting your drone licensing or understanding robotics, I think are going to come into play over the next while. There's been a huge influx with engineering and with women. I think they've gotten their numbers up from compared to where it was 30 years ago, quite a bit.
Yes. Yes.
But management is huge. There is a shortage of supervision. And really, you don't need any specific skills for being a manager. What you need is to have people skills.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it can be trained. It's just having the right attitude and understanding how to talk to people. And that in itself, there's a course called Dale Carnegie that Boxtel sends all their workers to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a course that teaches people how to talk to people, how to public speak, and how to deal with stress, among other things. And doing a course like that to better yourself or get to learn how to talk to people better or how to deal with situations and stress, I think is a huge impact on your life. And number one thing is learning how to be happy, I think, which some
Right.
of us forget. But there's definitely lots of opportunities for women. And I'm hoping to see more supervisors. I keep asking people when they're going to get another female superintendent in Manitoba. There's a few in Ontario, BC, and other places, but in Manitoba so far, I haven't met another one yet.
Well, it's just a handful then. But
Yeah.
hopefully, as we progress within a few years, we might see more come on the scene. That would be very encouraging for others, right?
Oh, for sure. When I first started, I remember searching for it. I could barely find it. I met one lady in the States. So and there's been a few that have been around for a while, like 20
Mm-hmm.
years, stuff like that, in some of the bigger cities. So it's definitely getting more and more popular. And businesses, so the bigger companies are realizing the advantage of having a female superintendent. There's more and more female clients, like you were talking about.
Right.
I just finished a project right now with a female client base, and it's always great to do because it's comforting to sit on a screen with more females on the screen in a meeting sometimes than men. Because I remember
Yeah.
starting out and it was just me and a bunch of men in every meeting.
Wow. So your journey is a testament to breaking barriers locally. How do you envision the global impact of women like you making strides in traditionally male-dominated fields?
I believe it will impact in more females coming out. I absolutely hate public speaking. I hate having my picture taken. I hate being on video. Can't stand it. I suck it up for women in construction stuff because I know if you can see it, you can be it. And right now, there isn't too many that you can see.
Right.
That I step out of my comfort zone to do it and will basically keep trying to do that to make a difference. And hopefully across the world, it starts filtering around. There's lots of different organizations doing things throughout everywhere. And everyone's talking about the workforce shortage that women can fill the gap. And it's
Yes.
just now, how do you convince them that they can? And how do you convince their parents that they should? And the guidance counselors, because it's even getting into that, they're going to advise you away. So you have
Yes.
to be pretty stubborn to stick it out and get through it all and know what you want. That it's hard when you're trying to figure out what you want in your career. So I'm hoping that it's going to improve the numbers and also improve construction as a whole and make it a healthier work environment for everybody that's there, that people go into work and are excited and there isn't maybe as much roughhousing or fights or although guys, honestly, they get over things very easily. Women tend to remember.
Yeah, we do hold grudges. We got to work on that for sure.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up, Leah, we're immensely grateful for your time and insights. Your journey embodies a spirit of empowerment that O stands for. So, any final thoughts or advice you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think I'd leave it with my dad gave me a plaque when I was young, and it said, never, ever, ever give up. And I broke that plaque into a bunch of pieces and I super glued it right back together. And I keep it kicking around just as a reminder that it gets tough in life, whether you do construction, whether you do teaching, anything.
Yeah,
Life gets tough, but don't give up.
exactly. And for our listeners who want to connect and learn more about you, where can they go and support you?
So right now, my contact is on LinkedIn. So it's Leah Peters. You're welcome to connect with me there if you have any questions or any further information that you're looking for. And hopefully there's going to be an organization coming soon in Manitoba that will connect tradeswomen all across Manitoba.
Oh, keep us posted. And you know what? We'd love to have some speakers on the show. That would be fantastic. And we could just carry on our message because, like I said, I can't do this on my own. I need the cooperation and the help of all women out there. It doesn't matter what station in life you're in. At Here Only Women Entrepreneurs, we're here to support, uplift women on their entrepreneurial and alternative career journeys. To continue exploring our rich pool of resources, visit the website onlywomenentrepreneurs.com for insights, interviews, and guidance tailored specifically for women navigating the business world or pursuing an alternative career in manufacturing or construction. Here you can also find my personal development and business courses to help you on your journey. Whether you want to start a new business or you want to get to the next level of your career, I can help guide you every step of the way. Book your free consultation today. If you're on social media, I'd love if you could hook up at Only Women Entrepreneurs to stay connected with our vibrant community or like-minded women who are making their mark in various industries. Your journey to empowerment is important to us, and we're here to provide the tools, resources, and inspiration you need to succeed. If you found the show helpful, please share so that others have the opportunity to listen in. And thanks so much, everyone.